grown-ups also have a need to share and to tell and to give answers. And you can sometimes have low self-esteem because you feel like, oh, I thought I was doing it right and I'm not doing it right. Sometimes we burden our children with a decision. They don't want to decide. Also, there is so much negativity on television. If I would watch news, I don't think I would do any work. I would go into depression. Those things anyway they will learn. It's the other thing, it's the pottery and the carpentry and climbing up on the trees, and somehow we can, have an education system or a familial environment where we say you love what you do and you do what you love.
I think we have a question from Dr. Pankaj Jain, who is a mathematician and scientist, who's come from Bangalore.
Lovely. I would love my son to meet because he loves math and science.
No, so I don't like to be called as mathematician in science, by the way.
Okay.
Why?
I'm going to let you describe yourself.
Why is that though?
Very nice. So I will let you think about it.
Okay.
And with that, I will put a question. Is it always necessary to answer a question?
Not at all. Absolutely not. That's the fundamental of it. It's not necessary to answer. I would say that it's necessary to respond. You may respond in saying, I don't know the answer. It's absolutely okay not to know the answer, or to say, I'll think about it.
Or even if we know the answer, is it necessary to give the answer?
Well, it depends. I think there are
Because
no rules.
you have a, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Go ahead.
So you have a conditioning of whatever, 40, 50 years. Are we not imposing that conditioning instead of we being deconditioned? Because you said that we have a great opportunity to learn from them because they are not yet conditioned. So,
totally. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And that judgment we have to, sometimes I have to stop myself. We as grown-ups also have a need to share and to tell and to give answers. And sometimes I have to stop myself because I have to let them discover it themselves. Or sometimes he comes up with another answer. Like even when we are playing a game, I'm so sure that's the word it's going to end with. And suddenly he says another word. I was like, oh yeah, there's that alligator where you keep sort of adding every letter. And sometimes you think this is the only word that's going to finish it. And that's why I said there are teachers that so much that we learn about our own selves. And you can sometimes have low self-esteem because you feel like, oh, I thought I was doing it right and I'm not doing it right. So you're absolutely right. It's not necessary to, but it changes from moment to moment. Sometimes children seek that answer. Sometimes they want the comfort of that answer where we need to give answer. It's not enough to say, like sometimes I feel we include a child in decision making. And another parent once told me when, she's now become a principal of a school in Goa, and she was saying that, sometimes we burden our children with a decision. They don't want to decide. So it also changes and it depends, and the more connected you are to your child, and it's tougher for all of you because you are with 20 children, 30 children, how do you feel that connection? And that's why the more you interact with them, I guess, as just children and not just through your subject, the more you started realizing the uniqueness of each child and what they are truly seeking or meaning when they ask. But I totally agree with you.
I have a question from Ms. Seema Jairat, who is the principal of the DLF school from Delhi. Yes, Ms. Seema.
Yeah, I think the sole person from Delhi here.
Okay.
So certainly I think everybody here must be very happy because it's quite apparent that you practice mindful parenting.
I try and I'm often unsuccessful.
We
but
always
I
try. That's the only thing we can do. Just try. We never have all the answers. But you mentioned that 6 years ago, you don't have a television for the last 6 years. So my question stems out of curiosity. Does that mean you're keeping your child away from digital devices or something like that, or is there some other reason?
Well, I mean, if there is a television, I'm bound to see things on it. He's bound to see. We are adding to the digital, the time spent on digital stuff. Also, there is so much negativity on television. If I would watch news, I don't think I would do any work. I would go into depression. because the world anyway, everything is kind of collapsing. You feel that's the whole truth. And also the screaming and screeching, you feel that what is the point of making a film, or what is the point of coming here and talking or doing anything at all when already people, everything is so polarized, and there is so much of anger and negative feelings. So I just feel that I don't know whether I'm sheltering, but there are other ways of knowing anyways. Like when he went to a kindergarten, till he was 3, by the way, I didn't speak a word of English to him. I used to only speak to him in Hindi. I speak 5 languages and I've done films in 10 languages because my parents had a flair and they both come from different parts. They taught me. Now I'm not being able to teach him Odia or Gujarati or whatever Bengali I know of, and so I knew growing up in Bombay he would only be speaking in English primarily. So for 3 years I only spoke to him in Hindi, and all my friends would say, oh my God, he's going to go to a school, he's not going to know a word of English. I said, trust me, he's going to learn English. And of course now when I speak to him in Hindi, he responds in English often. He seldom sort of speaks in Hindi, but that childhood wiring, things that they don't even remember, as we know, those exposures have a way of being part of that wiring. I mean, what is, you would know better, that girls get wired till age 7 and boys till 12, some such study. It's probably grown since then. But we do discuss news, anything important that if I see. I also don't see much of news these days. I've also stopped getting the newspaper, which I sometimes miss, because some of the stuff that's in the newspaper, I'm not so sure if the child should be reading and processing, and because they're also reading things on face value, everything. There is probably an age for it. And I don't mean age as in it's at 7, it's this, or it's at 8, it's this. Because yesterday I spoke to him and he said, I've joined the chess club and I'm actually better than the 10th standard kids. So I said, don't get arrogant about it. But yeah, there is no age where you can sing, or there's no age to do that. But there is something about age appropriateness in terms of news and films and what you assimilate. So in that sense, I feel that not having the onslaught of television in the house keeps me a little more sane.
So I meant other digital devices are allowed?
They are allowed, but they are rationed. He of course thinks that I used to give him the iPad or whatever, the least, lesser than all his other friends. But in Sahyadri, there are no digital devices at all till the 10th grade. Now some of you might think that's not a good thing, but there is summer vacation, and I think those things anyway they will learn. It's the other thing, it's the pottery and the carpentry and climbing up on the trees and all of that, and being in a lab and being in a tinker shed and just being in nature. That's not what I'm going to be able to provide living in the city. Yes.
Yeah, we have a question from Dr. Ashwini Kulkarni, who is joining us from Pune.
Hello, Nandita. Great listening to you. I just have a very different questions. In a developing country like India, when schools run with some purpose, so we have to also consider, you have seen both elite crowd also and worked with NGOs also. So what do you think should be the purpose of education in terms of creating livelihood or maybe for joy? Because it always is a dilemma with schools like us, that what is that we should prioritize? Because sometimes it contradicts.
Yeah, why should it contradict, some of us at least here, I can vouch for Vish and Shobha and probably you without knowing you, but myself, and you, no, you don't know what my next, how I'm going to end the sentence. How am I going to end the sentence? Tell me. Yeah, complete it. Right, bang on. See the temptation of grown-ups to complete sentences. But it's true. We are so fortunate. But the fact that we as a society have separated, you earn, you work, you study, or you learn to earn, or to do a job, or to go to a Harvard, or go to some corporate organization, and you do these for hobbies and for fun and on the side and when you have time. But these two can be the same. If somehow we can have an education system or a familial environment where we say you love what you do and you do what you love. And it's possible for it to be together. What we do is we slowly kill the joys, and then we tell them, no, you must do this to become this. And it's not needed. When they do something joyfully, they will be good at it. And even that, whatever they are doing, even if 20 people do in the world, they will excel in that, and they will. And what would you want more for your children as a parent, as an educator, for them to be joyful? So whether somebody ends up doing, working in a spaceship, or somebody is a chess player, or if somebody is a musician, or whatever they are doing, if we can encourage and nurture that, our job is only to be just sort of around and find those little things that they enjoy doing and nurture that, and not impose the other things. So I know it's still a struggle. I mean, we are privileged, right? And there are lots of children and lots of people in the world who do the work they do because they have to do. But also whatever school they went to, they were never encouraged to do anything else. There wasn't even an option available for it. So even if you are in a government school or a rural school or whatever, how do we continue nurturing those things? And yes, many of them will still have to maybe, be on a construction site or be a clerk in an office or whatever. But if we can even instill that sense of honesty and joy in what you do, maybe they'll find it in that environment too.
We have two questions. Maybe we should wrap up with that. One, I can see Dr. Madhura
I'm
Phadke
in the middle
here.
of, a film. I finished the shoot. I'm in the middle of post-production of the film. So we've been having late nights. I slept almost at 2:30. So but this topic is so close to my heart that I'm actually enjoying it. But thank you for keeping the time, because my whole team is waiting in Andheri. So yes, what was the question?
Both.
Do we have time for this question? Because
Could we just take
yes,
all
please.
the three questions together? I
No,
have.
I'll try and keep my answers shorter. The problem lies in me. So
Okay, can I go first?
yes, please.
All right, this is Archana. I am a parent of a 16-year-old girl. And while we are on the topic of parenting, I'd like to share that as a leader in my school or in my organization of schools, we talk a lot about, because you have been working a great deal with your masters in social work, in gender sensitization and gender equality and all that. I face a challenge of finding that there's a thin line between being equal and being overly superior. I feel we are an overly empowered female generation that we have now. And I always get this fear that my daughter should not become an aggressive person because she feels that we are working towards equality all the time. So where does one draw the line as a parent? Because I feel that she's watching me and she feels that this is the way to be, this is the way I need to put my foot down. The other day she travels to South Bombay College, and there was someone who creeped up on her and she actually turned around and slapped him hard. And then she calls me from there and tells me I slapped this guy. And I was like, oh God, why did you do
Yeah, no,
that?
I
So where do
understand. As a
you draw the
parent-
line in terms of, okay, equality is one thing, but
I
one
got
doesn't
it,
get...
yeah. So now I totally understand your
Right.
concern, and I think also parenting a son and parenting a daughter is actually different, and I'm noticing that with my other friends and because we are trying to make our sons more sensitive and more caring and less entitled, and we are trying to make our daughters more understand freedom and more independent and more confident, because we are trying to right the wrong, right? The wrong has happened for so long where men have kind of been entitled, and we are trying to say that, okay, this is what women need to do. And in every transition, whenever that transition is happening, there will be some instances, because they are also trying to find their balance. Right. And it will. I mean, this is probably, they are also at that age where you want to assert. My son also can be at 11, sometimes I feel he's like 16. Very assertive, very argumentative, because this is also the phase where they are trying to find themselves and their identity. That's why sometimes you have to rebel to find that, okay, if I push, what happens? What does my mother say? How is she going to react? Can I push a little more? You know, can I find that this is how I feel, I'm not you, you know. So I think this is also that phase. We have to understand also what is freedom. Like today, young girls, the freedom to constantly be on TikTok or to put a filter and to see yourself looking differently from you actually are. You know, to freedom to wear whatever you want to. Yes, we believe in that. We believe that you can wear a short skirt and you can wear a hijab and it's fine, or whatever the spectrum of that may be, you know. It is your right. But to have that nuance, that is, are you really making a choice? Or are you making a choice because others want you to make that choice? So these are very complex issues, and I think the more clarity we have as parents and as educators, and the more we talk to them, and instead of shutting it, instead of saying it has to be this or that, but to actually explore those subjects in a deeper way, might bring in those answers. So I don't think we are an empowered generation. I believe that as a woman, we are always in the process of empowering, or as a race, as people. You know, we can never be truly empowered. We can't use that as a past tense. Just because somebody slaps a person one day is not the only sign of empowered. And you're right. How do we become assertive without being aggressive? Absolutely. You know, the feminine qualities doesn't only rest in women. It's that whole feminine, masculine, that, you know, in nature, this thing of nurturing is a good quality. My father cooked and cleaned, and as a child, I thought mothers go to work and fathers cook and clean and for recreation paint. You know, I had that role reversal very early in life, and thank God for that, because I didn't come up with those stereotypes that mothers have to, because she used to go to office and my father is a better cook than my mother, you know, and he used to clean. So I think nurturing quality and we have to in fact tell men and boys and that you can be just as nurturing. It's not a domain that only girls have to do. So I think this can only happen through generations, through conversations, through what you watch, what you read, the people you surround yourself with. So sadly there are no easy answers to that.
Yes, thank you. But the second part of my question was that I just arrived at the gender equality issues with her, and then now they are getting exposed to the other generation of the they, them. So then there are questions about how do we interact with them? Do we act? So that is actually a mind-boggling.
I understand. That's why I said there are no easy answers. Right. She's also seeing you probably being also submissive in certain things. You have to also ask yourself that what is she seeing in me? How do I behave with my husband, with my in-laws, with my other colleagues? You know, do I keep the last piece for myself? Do I not do, what are the things I do? You know, she's responding to also yours. So things will change. And there may be some people who will probably go too far, but they'll find their balance. We have come a long way, you know, through unsung heroes, like, you know, women who have changed things. Who's the woman who first wore pants? Who's the woman who first cut her hair? Who's the woman who first got into a bus? Do we know those women? We don't. So we don't know what creates that change, and you know, so it's part of that change. Don't fear it too much yourself. I know it's probably easier said than done, but you know, we have to, I also do that. Sometimes my son does something and I'm like, oh my God, you know, is he becoming aggressive in this? Is he becoming arrogant about it? And we talk about it. So it's only through nuanced conversation and through self-reflection that we'll be able to become better role models also. Okay, here there was someone, I think we might have to keep that as the last question. I don't even know what the time is. I don't have a watch.
Could I take both questions together? And Dr. Madhura Phadke here.
It was actually in
Ms. Anushree
continuation
Gandhi.
to what she said, that no TV in the house, but you can protect your child in the house and by not giving that exposure. But the moment the child steps out, there will be so much of unnecessary exposure.
Absolutely.
So isn't it our duty again as parent teachers at home and teachers at schools who are like parents for the students to make sure that they make the choice even if there is an unnecessary exposure? Because we can't avoid that.
You're right.
Maybe at home, but
and
not
how
otherwise.
much and no more is a difficult thing. Like, you know, sometimes I give him so many healthy things. Like one day he turned around, he says, can I please have something unhealthy? And I'm like, what do you think unhealthy is tasty and healthy is not? Healthy things can also be tasty. So I realized that I was maybe going overboard with it. And you know, I need to bring that balance. So as a parent, you're constantly experimenting. It's not that what you know theoretically completely goes out of the window when you actually practice it. But if you're not watching the TV, you're also not missing it. It's not like he's never really, like since he was 6, he's not really been exposed to television. Before that also there was very little usage of it, you know, because I used to never watch TV. So I think if he's sitting and doing origami at that time, he's not thinking that, oh, I'm missing out on TV. When he goes to someone's place, he watches it. And we always have that frankness, oh, did you watch that? What did you see? Which film? There's something called commonsensemedia.org. You know, we refer to it for film reviews. What are parents saying about that film? What are children saying? And he checks it. I said, you know, you watch anything you want when you're going, just check on Common Sense Media, what is the rating? Does it have violence? Does it have consumerism? So he has begun to understand it himself. And you know, we have to empower them to think on their own, not that we keep thinking for them. I'm really sorry. I would have also loved to carry on this conversation because, you know, these questions also triggering. Okay, yes, ma'am,
There's
your
a
last
Last
one.
question, and I'll make it very short.
No,
I'm
I think
very, very
Anushree
concerned.
was waiting for some time before that.
Oh, okay, sure.
yeah.
You, and then I will run.
Yes, yes. I'll make it very short. I'm really resonating with what your son said, that I'm a man, you're supporting women, stuff like that. Have you already reached there? Because we run an after-school program for underprivileged girls, an NGO, and so far we are 7 years old, and some of them were okay with it initially. Now everybody started to ask me, can you start something for boys, something for men? Have you already reached there?
We have not reached at all. We have a long way to go. The inequality is deep, deep, deep.
Yeah, in my
So,
lifetime,
no, but we
will I
have
be
to
in-
explain because see, when we say these words, there's a lot of work happening on gender issues. But is it really percolating? Is the change so visible? You know, I mean, some of us are a little more privileged in that sense, but we are still, I struggle with my conditioning of guilt. I've worked hard on my guilt. When I'm working, I'm thinking, oh my God, am I giving less time to my child? When I'm working my child, I feel, you know, but there's a study. All these mothers, oh, if you're feeling guilty, let me tell you.
No, I'm not. Actually, I'm justifying why
I know,
I'm
you are not, but there may be others. Because a lot of
Generally,
women do feel guilty when they are working and they are kind of dividing their attention as opposed to when they see this homemaker woman. And you know, as long as it's by choice, a homemaker is by no means any less than somebody who is working, as long as it's your choice. But the good news is that there was a big study made at Stanford where they said that the sons who see their mothers work learn to respect other women much more. And the daughters who see their mothers work, they themselves get the confidence and the mothers become a role model. So they get into work more easily. So either ways, if we are working, we are not taking that time away, we are being better role models, and when we give them that time, hopefully we are more focused and we give ourselves completely. And your question about we are doing less work with boys, that's for sure. I think we need to make our boys more sensitive and caring and less threatened that when the world will become equal, you will not get the shorter end of the stick. That it's more fun to have a friend at home than to have a submissive wife. That it's more good to have a colleague who can have a banter and who can speak, you know, with you than to have someone who you can boss over. So we need to work with boys and we need to work with girls. And in fact, in our feminist movement, we haven't worked enough with boys. But it usually happens, right? When there is a lot of inequality, you tend to first try and empower those women who at least then don't, because they are equally conditioned by patriarchy. It's not just the men who are conditioned by patriarchy.